Hi, for people who are joining this live stream, we are doing a review of some Wolfram language functionality that I'm surprised there's still 12.3 stuff being discussed, but I guess 12.3 is on its way out the door. And there'll be some future stuff here. Okay, success and failure objects.
Right. So we added a note to success and failure, which isn't quite right because failure has, so maybe if you open the ref page, it'll be easier to follow.
Can I open the built ref page, or do I have to open the source?
The source one should be fine, at least for failure. With success, it's more recent, so it might not.
Okay.
Right. So we added that first note there last time to document this behavior that was sort of only documented in via examples.
Okay.
But that note isn't quite right, at least for failure. It's true for success, but it's not for failure because failure has these additional magic properties that don't come from the association.
In particular?
Well, they're listed in the agenda there: hold message, template message, message name, styled message.
I see.
And they might vary a little bit, but they're all sort of message related.
Okay, well then why don't we just say prop there? Extracts a certain property. You know, part of it is the tag, the keys in the actual failure association. Another, in addition, there's blah blah blah.
Right. So that I get. Well, one question is, should success have these same magic properties or not? And then, yes. And then, how exactly do we want to tweak the note to? Yeah, we can give prop. We can change key to prop. Right, we'll have to remove the explicit list of a sock there, right? Because they're not necessarily coming from a sock.
You want me to do the edit here?
Well, I was, if you have strong opinions, if not, I guess I can try to come up with something.
Yeah, I mean, we just need to, it's hard for me to do because of my computer mess ups here. I mean, okay. Let me update the documentation so I don't miss something.
I mean, if you just say,
and I can write this. I'm sure you can write it too. I'm
okay. Right, and then the other question is this discrepancy between success and failure.
Well, what is there a message for success? There isn't really.
I think there can be.
Really?
I mean,
it's an interesting idea to have a message for success, but I don't know of that existing.
Nick,
yeah, I mean, we modeled it off of what we have for failure with the ability to have a message template and parameters, but it's not strictly required. Again, failure came first and was modeled on the messaging template system for messages being more descriptive. A success object doesn't need to have a message template in it, but it
but it might, right? It might say, sent mail with ID, blah blah blah, right? So it's not necessarily a message, but it can use a message name to sort of format what it's saying. But if we're okay with and I guess Ricardo, who, this is pretty late for him, so I don't know if he's actually.
No, I made it.
My understanding of what you were saying is that you thought this was really useful and that we should add it to success.
Well, yeah, I mean, the experience of how we have been using it. I mean, we have been using it successfully in interpreter failure, and what message is doing is that it allows you to have a unique interface to extract the English message out of it. I mean, English or internationalized. This is why basically we have this design where the template can be uses most of the time rule delayed, and you just reference a message so that in the future you can, attach different translations to it. And so the idea is that you have this unique interface, yes, to basically render it in a context where basically you don't render the whole failure, but you just render the message for the final user, like what we are doing in forms. And so if you have a unique interface to extract it, it's easier for to basically extract it easily in the right place by using this interface. And I think it makes sense for the success as well.
Okay, so right. So that's obviously not for 12.3 because we're not going to just throw in that implementation. But I just making sure the documentation isn't lying was 12.3. So why don't we do this? I'll reword things.
Okay.
And, if there's still an issue after I've reworded things, obviously we'll need to wait for the implementation. If there's still an issue there, we'll bring it back.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the second thing is I realized we didn't actually knit progress reporting and dollar progress reporting. I honestly don't remember if I actually added it to tuning and debugging or if I just meant to and didn't. So we might want to look at that page. And then the only question is there some other place this fits? It didn't seem obvious where, but since it was only one page I came up with, I wanted to solicit opinions on that.
Well, did it get shouldn't this link to things like echo?
I suppose it could. It's
and maybe echo could in turn link to progress reporting.
Right. In a sense, echo is more analogous to the internal evaluate with progress, which we haven't quite figured out how to expose yet. But
well, we'll change that later.
Mm-hmm.
All right, where is echo? Let me ask my elephant, who is kind of a bit AWOL right now because of my screen's problem. Let's see whether I can use my elephant successfully here. Time measurement and optimization. That seems like a relevant section.
Oh, wow. I did not even see that one when I was looking for symbols, but yes.
Okay, tuning and debugging, you've got that one. By the way, this probably should have a link to dollar progress reporting. Okay, did you insert it on this page yet or not?
Like I said, I honestly don't remember. So, but I would have given it the 12.3 marking. So apparently I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, it's sort of.
I think it goes here.
Yeah, I was just going to say next to print temporary.
Maybe down here. Okay. Okay, so we should just say dollar progress reporting.
So there's dollar progress reporting, which is the sort of global default, and then there's progress reporting, which is the option name that you can override with.
Right. Specify default progress reporting for system functions. That reasonable?
Sounds reasonable to me.
Okay, here. So maybe kind of feel like what we can do here is just say progress reporting and dollar progress reporting. Is it called progress reporting? The option
Yes.
name?
Yep.
Okay. All right. What's next?
Right. So, we've changed, I guess I forgot to include an example, but we've changed the store now button for summary boxes, right? So if you do sparse array of 10 to the 7th, you should now see the new, of range of 10 to the 7th, you should now see the new, the new button, the new appearance with the additional actions. And right, so it will now give you an option, several. Oh, is that the new button? Yeah. This doesn't look right. What happens when you click? Okay, it is the new button. Okay, for some reason I thought the icon moved for both of them. Okay, so that's why I got confused, right? So you have this shiny new button.
Why does that icon there agree with the first icon in this list here? Just seems wrong. Store now, it should just be a chevron there. And also the placement of this seems very funky. And also the fact that this didn't respond to magnification is disappointing.
Lou, Billy, any opinions on that?
Those weren't part of the. We could update the embed inline in notebook icon, or leave it in favor of removing it from the button with the chevrons, as you said.
Right. I think
we can keep it because it kind of says what it's doing. Yeah.
Right. I think I think this will actually connect to the next question, which is, so for data set, we did not change its store now button in part because it comes in 2 different sizes. So at least for the full size button, it could look, if we're okay with it, it could look and behave just like the.
Yeah, one thing that's bothering me is the semicolon has, it should be a period if it's going to have a capital letter after it.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
So let's change it to period, please.
Noted. Okay.
I think we should ditch the small version for data set.
Okay.
So, I mean, if it's only going to be attached to large data sets anyway, which are likely to be wide, and if it's wider than the data set, then it just hangs out. I don't think that's a problem. I think we should just get rid of the small button.
Are you sure? Even for these weird little cases?
Well, it's for large data sets. I think it's unlikely to.
Yeah, it probably will never be seen. in the wild. It's like
Yeah.
a
And if it is, it's just not a big deal. It just hangs out a little bit.
I think given that we've built this capability, I don't know of the cases where there'll be a thing like this that's elegantly sitting there, and then it's somehow, I don't know. I feel like it's
Right. I guess the other question is, what happens after you store it in, say, a local object, right? Because we give it the little badge saying what local object it's in. Right. So in the summary box,
yeah.
if you actually go ahead and select save in local object, then you'll see what the final state looks like. So yeah, because you need to reevaluate it in the current session. Right, but I'm saying, right, so if you store it in the notebook, it just disappears.
But it didn't give me any choice.
You need to do it in the sparse
that was
array.
the starting point of this discussion. We haven't changed anything in data set.
Okay.
But in the summary box, if you store it in a local object, right? So we now have that. So would we keep that as a little hanging thing on the data set?
I would think
Are we
so.
okay with that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I don't quite understand why we have this here. I think that should be underneath. It should be in the blob up here. Storage location, local object or something. Because it's just going to work at this point. I mean, to have that be a big, loud thing, and a local object, I hate doing it this way.
Right, but
no, I hate this A and then this ridiculous extra space there, local object. It's either English, in which case it's local space object with lowercase l and lowercase o, or it's...
Right, well, I mean, that thing is a button, right? You can actually extract the local object. I mean, the indefinite...
Really? How do I extract the local object? Oh. Then what I think we should do is say data stored in, cut out the A, local object, open bracket, ... Okay?
Okay.
Do you want a colon or just...
No, I think it's okay to just say
Okay.
local object stored in data stored in local object, open bracket, whatever. Okay.
Okay, so we'll right. So we'll make that change for local object and cloud object, and also the colon. The semicolon, that should be a period.
Yep.
And then I think Chris has everything he needs from our side to just make the changes to data set. But if he needs assistance, of course, Lou and I are available to provide that assistance.
I mean,
So
this is a bit loud here. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask, what was the decision on that tag? You said you want it to be in the blob, but if it is in the blob, that won't work for data set.
All right, that's fine, but I would like it to be less bright blue here, to be a little bit tamer, less dramatic. Once it's stored, I think we can be less dramatic about where it's stored and so on.
Well, but it's not there, right? Right. If you sent me this notebook right now, it would be useless to me.
I see what you're saying. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. I'm sold.
Okay.
Okay. What's next?
All right. So I think the next item is the Rob item. Yep, and which is a web of interrelated issues.
This looks painful.
Yes. Well, this is LCC. It's where we deal with the painful issues.
Okay, fine. Okay. Okay, is Rob here?
Yes, he is.
Okay. Okay,
Right.
explain the issue.
So right now we have two, we have different behaviors among different functions. And so one inconsistency is shown right there between unit triangle and heaviside lambda, which are, they're point-wise, they're basically the same function. It's just that one is just the piecewise defined function, and the other is.
Okay, so you're saying if I do this, that's going to give an exact integer.
Right. And it always gives an exact integer.
I know. So the question is, these functions where it should be, it's basically in the technical language, it's the functions of compact support. So the functions which we know, which have some value in some range, but outside of that range, we know are exact, are definitely zero. Should it be a machine zero, or should it be, for consistency with the other part of the range, or should it be an exact zero because we know they're really zero? I understand. Okay, so Rob, what are the places where this entangles?
Well, so this came up as Mark brought this up as a discussion. Is if we want to compile compile things generally.
It's a compiler issue. It's a compiler issue of whether this what the type signature of this function is. Correct.
Right. And
okay.
we want to be as if we can strive to be as type consistent as possible.
Okay. You know what? We're not going to achieve that. So that's a problem for the compiler, right?
Well,
if you think we're going to change the semantics for the sake of having it be a little bit easier for today's compiler to not have to use type unions, we're not going to do it, right? Because I just don't believe in it. I mean, the fact is, it's not beyond the capability of the compiler to deal with it. It can use type unions, right?
Yes, but
okay. So don't tell me that it has to be done that way, because it's like
there are other issues. So right now we have inconsistency, right? I mean, plot unit triangle and plot.
No, I get it, but what Rob is making is let's change them all so that they are type signature consistent. Okay, good for the compiler, bad for other things.
I'm not saying change everything. I'm saying when there's a decision to be made like this, change it to be type consistent when it's reasonable to do so.
No. I mean, look, I'm sorry. Okay, look. Okay, what is the complete inventory of cases?
I don't have that handy. It's probably 5 to 10 functions. I mean, okay. Here are 2 of them.
I'm unclear. Okay, these 2 examples, unit triangle and so on, these are not, I mean, what I worry about is things where the next thing we have is bool, for example, or inverse bool, or whatever it's called, right? Where it's like, oh, that's 0 point. Oh, what do I do? Am I making sense?
Doesn't bool always give an exact?
No, bool does, but inverse bool.
Inverse bool, I'm not sure what inverse bool is.
Well, it's the thing that goes from 0, 1 to true, false.
Which is...
I forget what. I'm not sure we ever have inverse bool, but we have...
yeah, I'm not sure we have that either. Right, we have unitized and we have bool. I don't know.
Oh, well, maybe we missed that. I mean, and maybe we don't have that, but you get what I'm saying. That there'll be a chain of things.
Right, and let me point out that the unit triangle behavior changed at some point. It was originally returning machine zeros, and then it started returning.
Okay, well, why did we change it?
No, I have asked. I have not gotten an answer.
So then we need to look at the pull request and see what.
No, well, there was ancient. I mean, there's no pull request. I mean,
how anciently was it changed?
Version 7 or 8, maybe a bit.
Things will be already being pulled by version 7 and 8.
No, they weren't.
No, they weren't. But there would be a commit message, right?
There were,
Okay,
yeah.
fine. It was CVS, not. Okay, well, it cannot be before 2008.
Okay, so right. So I guess it was. I mean, now do you? Is there a link to the bug report there? Yeah, there. Well, it's not a link, but there's bug number 388159.
Okay, why don't we look it up? But okay, so let me understand the issue. The issue is there are, okay, would it be consistent? Okay, so one assertion is reals should map to reals, even when the function knows that. I don't understand how you can support that, because, piecewise, for instance, that's a user-defined thing, whether for x greater than 0, it's 0 versus 0 point and so on. Making sense? Rob, you understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Look, if you make the principle that anytime there's inexact input in, it's going to give an exact input out. You can't do that for piecewise, for example, because piecewise, the user has explicitly given the output value.
Sure, which is why there's a suggestion of having, if the user wants to create a type consistent piecewise, that we should have a function that gives the correct 0.
Why is it just an issue for 0? Why isn't it an issue for 1, a half, 3/4, whatever else?
Because typically the branches that give the other things
I've got this case here, right?
Okay.
And I say I feed into that. Let's say, does this work? Does this have the correct precedence? No, it doesn't.
No.
Disappointing. Would have been swank. Okay. So in this case, I do this. Okay, now
Sure, but this is a function that always returns an exact result, which is fine, right? The point is, if you do unit triangle of 0.5.
Look. This case, right? I can get exactly the same issue, right there. Oops, minus 0.7 down to Saurus. It's inexact.
Sure. Right, but right now there isn't a good way for a user to provide a default 0.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's perfectly fine. I think the point is that if we have a function like unit triangle that could have floating point values everywhere reasonably, why shouldn't it?
I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Look, the case here is
Right.
there are functions that have built-in default values. That's what you're saying.
I mean, another example is ramp.
Is what?
Ramp.
Okay.
Which one?
Ramp.
And I think ramp is type consistent.
Ramp.
A ramp of minus 1.0. Yeah.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Right.
Okay.
So for example, right. So it's probably more common for our math functions to be type consistent. So in that sense, unit triangle is real an outlier.
Okay. Well, maybe it should be considered a bug, I suppose. Is it consistent to make these few functions type consistent?
I think so.
Okay. Then what's all this stuff? I just don't believe in this. I mean, why isn't there a 1 as well as a 0 as well as in everything else?
Because the default return value of piecewise is exact 0. So if you don't match in here, so you know, it is much more common to want to provide a default 0.
But it could be a default. It could be a default 1 as well. I don't.
Yeah, I think the issue, and I could have this wrong, is that it's easier to propagate the precision to non-zero than it is for 0. In particular, accuracy for 0 is.
Well, I'm aware, but that's not what this is about. This is about inexact versus exact. There's no precision for an exact 1. See what I'm saying? There's a different issue.
Well, there's infinite.
No, but my point is that it's easier to code the type consistency between input and output for non-zero results than it is to code it for 0. I think that was the claim in the email thread.
Right, because all you need to do is multiply by 1 dot, and you have, as long as the other bits are not exact 0.
Okay, so speak to this, Rob, because that's a subtlety that I hadn't realized.
So the 0, the reason I like the idea of 0 is not, I mean, sure, there's potential uses there. I mean, it's easy enough to have a, you know, in the compiler, it's essential to have we have a constant 0 and a constant 1, both, which are quite useful, particularly the constant 0.
What about constant 2?
Multiply by 2.
Yeah, that's 2 times
okay,
constant.
so that's just hackery there.
Right. So, but you can always, so anything where you want a 0 and you want either an exact 0 or machine 0, which is the most common case, you can just multiply.
Oh God! So you're proposing something where
0 and you'll get the result. So
I get it. It's a piece of complete hackery. Is basically what's being explained. I mean, the thing you asked for isn't the thing you really want. The thing you want is some kind of weird. It's because you don't have a way to make an inexact number out of 0. Oh, whatever.
Well, okay, Stephen. So, consider, right? You have a piecewise that's, which defaults to 0 outside a certain range, but you might want a, exact 0 if it's exact, a machine real if it's, if the input is a machine real. Machine complex if it's
okay, whatever, yeah,
or even a quantity of 0 meters instead of exact 0 if the input is a quantity in meters.
So what's your point?
I'm saying having a function that returns the correct 0 based on the input is a useful operation. Nobody would be forced to use it, but
for what functions would it be provided?
For users to write their own piecewise functions.
So it will be an option to piecewise.
What?
It will be an option to piecewise.
Well, no. Not an option, but yes, it would be something that people could use in piecewise.
How would it work? What would it look like?
The default case would be, right, 0 of x.
That seems like a function to me.
Yes, that is what we're talking about. These are, right, 0 and constant 0 are functions, are they not, Rob?
Yeah, they're functions.
Right, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about a function named 0 or constant 0 or, Stephen's most favorite 0 that takes an input and based on the input returns an appropriate 0. It is not a constant.
Okay.
It's a convenience for multiplying by exact 0. And in some sense, it's not really necessary.
No, it's a thing that maps.
Yes, maps to the
Type.
correct.
The type of a thing onto a zero of that same type. So what you're saying is that if I said 0 of 5 meters, this would return 0 meters. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay, so it's sort of in the, what does unitized do?
Unitized is kind of essentially the inverse bool you were talking about. It either makes a 1 or a 0.
Okay. So this operation, it's kind of it has a certain projective character to it, this zero operation that you're describing.
Well, the definition of the zero operation is you can write out a rule. So 0 of x underscore colon equals 0 times x. So it's just it's sort of a reading convenience thing for that.
Wait,
That's nonsense. That's just nonsense. Look,
yeah,
this times this. Oh, it does give 0 meters.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really useful for list cases, so it could be more efficient than actually doing the multiplication.
But that's your problem in the compiler.
Right.
That's your problem. You fix that.
Right. Well, the reason for having the 0 is that most people don't realize that multiplying an exact 0 by something gives the natural 0. And it's also not very readable.
Wow.
Like you look and say, why am I multiplying this thing by 0? That seems like a bizarre thing to do.
I had no idea either.
Yeah, well, if you didn't know, how are poor users supposed to have a chance?
okay, so if the implementation really is just multiplying by
Yep.
exact 0, then you
Implementation
probably
is
don't really
totally
need this
trivial.
as a function.
But what? Sorry.
Although I guess, right, I guess the one advantage is if it's symbolic, it could stay unevaluated. Right. So one issue is, right,
Yeah.
if you do 0x slash dot x goes to, quantity of 4 meters, then you'll get an exact 0 rather than 0 meters.
That's right. That's actually a really good point, Utai. So it avoids the evaluation of exact 0 times x when you have x as a placeholder.
Right, which would just give 0.
Exactly.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, the name 0 is off the table. If we can come up with a really good name which explains what it is. I mean, this is such an unbelievably confusing thing. It's not even, it's just not even funny. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Okay, so what is this doing? It's some kind of, oh boy, what is this doing? I mean, it's more or less this, but I don't like that. That name is horrifying as well. It's closer to that, isn't it?
Right. I was thinking like make 0 or matching 0.
0fi.
Coerced 0?
It's an exotic looking word for an exotic looking
Well,
operation.
maybe 0 like x.
No way. Then it's,
Zeroed?
0 eyes.
we can't have 0 eyes because it does the opposite thing from unitize. What was the thing Brett just said?
Zeroed?
That's better.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually not bad.
Yeah, I like it.
All right, what's the description? 0 of x makes a version of x.
Returns a 0 of the same type as x, or of the same.
Well, it returns a zeroed version of x of the same type of x or something.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we got two things here. All right, so I guess we can consider this function zeroed. And we should probably, despite my protestations earlier, fix this type consistency for these functions that have default values.
Yeah, I mean, I can ask Mark if he has a longer list than these guys. But I like I said, over the past year I've reviewed the docs for 200 something math functions, and I only came up with unit triangle. Off the top of my head, I remember unit triangle and maybe one or I have some vague sense there were one or two others, but it's
There's going to be a bunch of others in the ramp family.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the other place where we have type inconsistency are things that suddenly return pies or indeterminates. Those are more mathematically meaningful, and so I think that's. But here, where it's really just 0 versus 0 dot, I'm like, I think why not why unpack just because
Fine.
Some of your numbers had to be bigger.
Right. Let us continue. Okay, Catnate, the life and times. Ethan on our live stream says Catnate doesn't work on sparse array objects. It certainly should.
Okay. Well, yes. I mean, Catnate is a weird and, to my mind, not terribly compelling function, right?
Oh, it's very, very, very useful. I use it all the time.
Okay, I have never found myself wanting to use it.
Okay, so I'll tell you why I use it. Okay.
Okay.
It is basically the use of flatten, which does not default to level 1, is a number one source of bugs in functions of mine. Okay, I use Catnate to avoid that. I've just found Catnate really useful in many
different than apply
flatten level 1.
Right. Well, I mean, why isn't it join? Right.
It isn't join because join doesn't take that out of list.
Right. So it's apply join, isn't it? I mean,
yes, it is.
Okay, fine. Then that's it's simple to make it work for sparse arrays by implementing it as apply join.
Fine.
Yeah. Right, and the other thing it does, right, is it extracts the values of associations, which, right, so Catnate of association doesn't return association, it returns, and I guess I've never tested this, can you combine a list of lists and associations? So if in that first example, if you add one of those change one of those to be an association, will it still work?
Well, sure. The third example has that.
Oh yeah, it does. You're right. I missed that.
It's a bad example. It should say 3, 4.
Yeah. So the right. So I guess it does the auto values bit.
Right.
Right. So should it take a level spec? I mean, I suppose it in principle could. It's a little bit weird because, most things that take a level spec take arbitrary heads, and this most definitely does not. It wants a list of things.
Okay, but let's understand what it's. Think of it more like a linear algebra function or something, or a list. I mean, okay, what would it mean? What would the level spec mean? I think the level spec would mean the correct level spec, like just 2, would mean catenate in a sequence all the things that live at level 2. Right? Which is, I guess, equivalent to going levels 1 through 2, isn't it? Do you get what I'm saying?
I'm not sure I entirely followed that. I mean, I guess my belief was that it would more or less mirror what level specs mean in join, right? That you're joining at those levels, but maybe that's not right.
Join? Does join have a level spec?
Yes, join has a level spec.
But of course, like I said, join.
It's not a general level spec. It's just a.
Oh, that's a horrifying, stupid Verogs thing. I hate those. Successive levels. Join by concatenating.
I'm sure there's an example in scope.
Well, so apply catenate. Catenate as apply join could work the same way. Is that true?
I think so. I don't see an obvious reason why it couldn't.
It would actually be nicer in terms of that level specification than join is, because we don't have the Verogs issue.
Right. All right. Well, let's investigate that possibility then.
Okay.
Right. I think that's probably going to work. I'd have to think through all the examples, but I think that's probably going to work. To have catenate comma n be something that basically joins the objects at level n in each of the lists sub I. I mean, it's basically the same wording as this, except that the lists sub I here are in an overall list. Okay. All right. Anything else?
Well, I feel like I should apologize to the audience because we've made it through the whole agenda in like 48 minutes, and I wasn't prepared for that.
What did you think was going to hold us up?
Well, I thought that the early ones would go pretty fast. It's just normally I prepare some agenda, and by 5 o'clock we're maybe halfway through it. So
right.
So if anybody in the audience feels like they didn't get their money's worth, I apologize for preparing too short an agenda.
Right. Okay. With respect to 12.3, I mean, there's no more stuff left to talk about for that. Is that correct?
I mean, it's just documentation tweaks, unless we think we want to try to get the data set changed to be live for 12.3. But
nice.
So I don't know what's in Chris's
which aspect of that? I mean, we have the general labeling there.
Right. Well, just making it accept the new
multiple choices for destiny.
Right.
I think that's nice, but not super critical.
Okay.
Question in general. I mean, the list of things that are being LCC'd, for example, the useful round across the system. Who thinks they're dealing with going to hunt down the use of around, the use of units, even across the system. Who thinks they're hunting down those dependencies?
Well, I don't know. I don't know that anybody thinks there is. I mean,
Okay.
It's mostly me, right? LCC is basically me. I mean,
yeah, I understand, but I'm asking: is that going to be delegated to the statistics group? Where is that?
Well, Jose's on PTO today, so I mean, I think around is maybe statistics, but certainly Jose would have a better answer on.
Okay, fine.
In terms of quantity, I think we've made. I mean, think we've done. I mean, there's still some work in like the core algorithmic things, the core math things to better handle units. But I think Nick can disagree with me, but I think we've done a pretty good job of propagating it out, and now it's just sort of individual functions here and there where we spot issues.
So, like eigenvalues, for example, does it work there?
Well, eigenvalues, eigenvalues maybe. I mean, with linear algebra, there are issues that it typically needs to be all the same unit, and so, or it's not a consistent problem, and so we haven't made the big push into linear algebra.
There's a quantity array, so let me say determinant of that array. Oh, nice.
Right.
And now if I say inverse of that array, nice.
Right.
If I say eigenvalues, very nice.
Right. So those work more abstract, and yes, in fact, eigensystem works as well. I remember now, and it puts the units in the right place. Some of the matrix decompositions, it's not clear where the units go, and that's where it gets messier. So that's why maybe not all of the linear algebra ones understand.
Sorry, which ones don't? What doesn't know where its units go?
Like QR.
By the way, I'm sorry. Look at that. See the bottom of that thing? It's missing its foot. So to speak.
That's a known issue. I think that it's been recently fixed. Right, but if you do something like QR decomposition,
why is this isn't right?
This is right. The eigenvectors are dimensionless and the eigenvalues are dimensionful.
Yeah, that's the only way you can report a meters in the eigenvalue.
I see. Okay.
Right, but if you try something like QR decomposition, I don't know if it will.
It's much less defined even there. It seems to know something.
So it knows something, right? And obviously, if you had a matrix where
is that unique? I'm sorry. In this case here, is that unique? Could I have dimensionless eigenvalues and dimensionful matrix?
Yes.
So that's a convention.
Right, but for eigenvalues, it makes most sense that you want
right,
to know.
but yes, you're right. But it's certainly the more sensible convention, right? I mean, the eigenvalues are the physical observables, and the eigenvectors are just abstract state projections.
In fact, aren't the eigenvectors normalized to have norm 1? So how could they have units?
Right.
And that's again, that's by convention, but it's a perfectly reasonable.
No, that's a very good point. As soon as you're normalizing them, they couldn't possibly have units.
Right.
Okay, but what if I look at some fancier statistics functions? Like, for example, empirical distribution.
Oh, I'm pretty sure all of the stat ones support units.
Okay. Okay. Okay, good. Well, then the next thing will be around.
Yep. And like I said, I'd be happy to discuss it if Jose were here, but since
Yeah, I understand.
I don't have the same view of around as he does, I'd rather not discuss it in his absence.
Okay. All right. Does anybody know what's happening? Just another random poke in the dark. The time series stuff, which I also think has a bunch of consistency issues.
I'm not sure what
together.
you mean by time series stuff.
Well, I mean the redo of time series to be more better, stronger, allow time series that aren't just individual numbers with, you know, all kinds of things like that. Okay, we don't know.
We need someone from the stats team to
okay,
talk
all
to
right.
that.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thanks all very much, and see you another time. Thanks to folks on the live